Welcome back, Alpha Hunters. Okay, so today we got another Your Stock, My Plan, and on tap for today is RBLX Roblox Corporation. And I'm sure many people have probably heard, or maybe you have heard of Roblox, the game. And that is the same company that is behind the game. But they are doing a lot more than just video games. They are trying to develop, the whole metaverse thing, if that ever becomes something. But if you want to take a look at their website, it is corp.roblox.com. It is not just roblox.com. That'll actually take you to the video game that they do put out. But if you want to come in here and just kind of click around and check it and see a lot of the different things that they have to offer of information about what they're trying to do with the metaverse and stuff like that. They have a lot of different research and news and some stuff about their technology and what kind of technology they're trying to implement in the metaverse. But yeah, if you want to check out their website and see the different things that they do, definitely come check it out, especially if you're looking to potentially get into a RBLX position. So back at the stock charts. Now, I did have a friend reach out and text this one to me. So Val, I do appreciate the recommendation. But as we begin to look at this, we got a pretty nice downtrend that's been going on for roughly about 6 months. So, okay, let's just take a look at a little bit of a longer term chart. Okay, I'm gonna go back to a daily chart because that's relatively new. So I'm just gonna zoom out here and then so we can see where the IPO is. So we'll go and mark kind of that area. So that's kind of the beginning IPO area. And we can see it kind of just broke up and has been really in this downtrend for the past 6 months, okay? And looks like we have a pretty good of a channel of a downtrend, like right through there. And then the bottom of that channel is probably like right in through here. So not too shabby of a channel that we got going down here. The only bad thing about a downward channel is, well, they don't go to zero unless they go to zero. So where do you start getting in? Well, I don't really like coming up with plans on stocks that are in downward channels kind of this aggressively because, yeah, I mean, the barrier of zero is very, very much realistic. And if it continues on its pace, it'll hit zero by the end of the year, pretty much. It'll get pretty close to zero by the end of the year. So obviously that's not going to continue unless you think RBLX is going to go out of business. I'm not really one to kind of think that. Now, one of the issues why they are getting hammered as much as they are to the downside is they don't make positive earnings. They don't have positive earnings. So they do have negative earnings. They do bring in quite a bit of revenue, but bringing in revenue is not bringing in earnings. So we need to kind of figure out what the game plan would be. So my first thought is not really to do options, like a recurring options type strategy. It's going to be one of those where we just need to find a good spot where we would want to potentially get in, or potentially maybe even just start doing maybe a little bit of the wheel that we think is a really good spot on some strike prices to just start doing the wheel strategy, something like that. So we can definitely look at some option strategies, but it's going to be pretty limited to what we're potentially going to be doing. Now, what I would like to see actually, and I don't know about buying it currently at this current level, which is around the 30 point level. I don't know about buying it here. And as I'm kind of looking at this, so we can see a pretty good, 5 count wave down. We got a 1 here, we got a 2, and we're gonna have a 3 all the way down to about here. I don't think that's the 3, and that's a 4, that's a 5, because what I think's going to happen is I think that'll be a 3, or we might go a little bit lower from where we currently are and put in a 3. That's fine. But when we break the upper channel line of this downward trend, I think we'll go in, put in a 4 out in that area. That will break that channel. That'll be the 4, and then the 5 will go and break the 3 low, somewhere like that. Potentially get back into the line. And really, if it gets down and hits, comes down, breaks that 3 line or that 3 point, and it comes and hits the downward, the previous channel, then I think that would be a pretty good spot. Which if it did do it somewhere around the 20-point level, or even if it didn't get to that upward trend line, like if it just happened, like all this played out much longer in time, something like that, if it played out much longer, that might not be a bad spot to dip in. Anything I think around the 20-point level or lower, I think would be a good spot to start dipping in on RBLX. Now, the thing that's going to have to happen for RBLX to really be a really good investment is they need to start getting to positive earnings, okay? Now, the one thing that kind of does bother me with RBLX is what Facebook has been saying in their earnings for the past couple of quarters, is that them building out their own metaverse. You know, they've been spending billions of dollars to build out a metaverse that maybe not ever really come to fruition or really ever see a return on that, on those costs, okay? So that is something to be very worried about with RBLX, is are you ever going to be able to recoup these costs that you are developing into the metaverse, right? So if you do go look at their website and do a little research about them, you'll see a lot of things about the metaverse, okay? They're almost a metaverse exclusive company. And that's kind of worrisome. It really is, because we don't know if the metaverse is going to work out, okay? For investors to really back something, you really need to know if it's going to work out. So you need to be very cautious about how much you invest if you are going to invest in a company like RBLX. I do think later on down the line, it might be worth a shot, okay? They do have video game platforms and stuff like that that they definitely can crunch on to bring in revenue and stuff like that, and try to get that to profitability while they develop their metaverse, if that ever becomes something, okay? I want you to leave a stock in the comments below, and I'll come up with a trading plan. So let's go ahead and take a look at their option chain and just kind of see what kind of options we got to deal with. So they do have weeklies going on for about 6 weeks. So that is good to see. I do like seeing weeklies every 6 weeks. Gives an indication of liquidity in the options for the stock. So that's kind of nice. The bid-ask spread's not too bad. Here we got pretty close to at the money. These are about 7 cents. These are 20 cents. Maybe that's just a fluke for right now, because these are 36 cents. So they got a little bit spready on the bid-ask spreads. So a little bit of liquidity issues. Not too bad, but they do have pretty good strike prices, like every 50 cents, which you should see at this level of a stock price. But they do have them every 6 weeks, so that's good. And they also do have Jan 23s and Jan 24s. So that is also good to see. So what you could do is, when the RBLX really kind of breaks down and gets to about the 20-point level, is you can start doing something like the wheel to bring in cash flow. And then once it starts to turn up, if it gets below 20 and you do get assigned shares, then just turn right around and start selling covered calls. And then here's the thing, is like, this would be my game plan, is if it got back and then turned north of 20, right? So you get assigned shares. Let's say you were selling at the 20 strike in the future, right? And then you got assigned shares, and then it chopped around in the teens for a while, and then it started turning back north. And that whole time you're doing covered calls, bringing in cash flow, just kind of bringing in cash flow, as much cash flow as you could. That way you could then buy into potentially more shares in the future. I would look for that break back above 20, and I think that would be a good spot to then say, okay, let's start doing some bullish strategies. And this is one I could definitely look at in the future. I don't think it's going to play out that way anytime within the next 3 to 4 months. It'll probably take the whole year for maybe something like this to play out, maybe even into the beginning of next year, as they're a company that just doesn't have positive earnings. So they're going to get caught up, they're going to get hit as interest rates continue to rise to combat inflation. So we just need to realize that this stock is going to take a while to work its way into being back into a bullish trajectory, and they really need to work on getting to positive earnings. And I do think that they will do that. Okay, as the stock price continues to get hit, they will feel more pressure to get to positive earnings. They will look for ways to cut costs, be more efficient, and stuff like that. So they will work their way to being a positive earnings company. When the company becomes positive earnings, the stock will have already bottomed. Okay, and this is why I am saying that you're potentially, if you do want to get into a position, you're gonna have to be a little bit of a front runner on some of this, to where as it kind of breaks down into these lower levels, potentially into the lower 20 area, you're gonna have to start dipping your feet in if you are a believer of RBLX, because the stock will bottom before the company turns into positive earnings, because that's what always happens. Okay, but you need to have a little bit more of a futuristic mindset and say, okay, in the future, I think this would be a good pickup at 20. You know, looking 10 years down the line, would this be a good pickup at the 20-point price level? You know what? That's a great argument to be had. It just depends on what you think their future has in store for them. I mean, I don't know. It's, you know, it really kind of comes down to what you think of the metaverse. If you're a believer of the metaverse, I'm not really a believer of the metaverse. That's kind of the thing, is like, I don't want to recommend buying a stock. I'm not really a believer in the metaverse. I do like their technology, and that's kind of a thing I do like about RBLX. I do like their technology. Their technology is really good. If they focus more on the game side, which is where I've mostly heard of them before, is like the video game side, they could be a pretty decent company. But they're trying to transition into the metaverse and be a lot more into that area of growth. And maybe what does wind up being an area of growth in the future, it just, nobody really knows what the metaverse is going to be. Everybody says it's going to be everything, and then my response to that, so it's nothing. So it is one of those things that we don't know what the metaverse is going to be. I don't know if they know what the metaverse is going to be. Everybody's just trying to develop it without knowing really what they're developing for. It doesn't mean that they can't change their mind in the future about the direction of the company. Okay, they do have really good technology. I think they do have really good leadership. So if it winds up that the metaverse isn't working out, they are still developing resources within the company that they can use on different platforms, and that they can use in other areas other than the metaverse. So it'd just be interesting to see how it kind of shakes out. I do think that they will figure it out eventually, which is why I do think anywhere around the 20-point level or less, I do think it would be a good idea to be dipping in. So this is one that we can come back and look potentially later at this year or beginning of next year, see what the stock chart looks like. So really kind of my recommendation is, as we get to the $20 level or less, I'd say it's okay to probably start dipping in a little bit. I wouldn't be building a large position until the stock starts really kind of turning higher. I think as we start to dip below this 20-point area, I think it's okay to start dipping in a little bit, okay? But then once the stock then starts turning back north, right, as we come down, we get below the 20-point level, start dipping in, and let it shop around down here, get flat, and then start turning north. And then once it starts turning north of 20 points, I think that would be the time to start being a little bit more aggressive and being a bullish type position holder on RBLX, or having bullish type strategies. It's really kind of difficult to put together an options trading plan around the stock that, you know, the stock is definitely falling, and it's falling at a pretty predictable trend, but it looks like it could start to get overdone. I would look for a bounce here probably soon for a couple months, and then I would look for the push back lower probably later this year into the beginning of next year. That would be kind of my plan. I don't really have an options plan I would look to implement on trading around this stock, as it's not going to go to zero anytime soon. It'll get pretty low just because they don't have positive earnings. But as they try to figure out their earnings and cut costs, make some efficiencies, bring in more revenue, they'll figure it out eventually, which is why I say somewhere around the 20-point level, start dipping in, and then as they turn back higher, I would look for probably some more bullish strategies, okay? But this is going to take a while to kind of play out. So we can definitely come back and revisit this one in the future. But that would be my game plan. It's more of a futuristic. This is going to be like a 10-year out kind of mindset on a play. But that would be what I'm looking for. Anything under 20 points, I think you got to probably start dipping a little bit. The way I would do it with options, just selling cash secured puts, and then just selling covered calls. You do get assigned shares, and then just trying to bring in as much cash flow, and then look for that break back higher, and then start doing some bullish strategies in the future. So that's what I would be looking to do. I don't know how long this is going to take to play out. It might be a while, but I wouldn't be looking to get into this bounce here. I think we'll break down and go lower, especially later this year, as I do think we are in a bear market on the market. And as the market really starts to break down, names like these are really going to have some pain to the downside. And I know if you are already in this and you're thinking pain to the downside, and it's gone from 132 down to 30, you're like, how much more pain can there be? So yeah, I mean, it'll get a little bit more painful, but obviously nothing like 132 down to 30 painful. But I mean, there could definitely be some more downside, probably down another third from where it is now to maybe a half. If it got down to about 15 points, that'd probably be around the bottom, I would imagine. So that would be my game plan for this one. It's very difficult to say, you can do this options plan and make money on RBLX. It's just the time of the marketplace where we, just having a lot of volatility. Things are not trending in a normal bullish market. So you got to look for names that are really going to be beaten up. And the other thing is, names like this, RBLX, this would be a really good point to make about this. RBLX and any of those futuristic names that you think are going to be the big time in the next bull cycle, they are going to bottom before the stock market. And the fact that it is already down from 132 down to 30 points just makes me think that this will be a very good pickup going into the future, because this thing's down. How much is this down? Let me just look at that real quick. So this thing's down from its all-time high roughly 80%. This thing is down roughly 80%. And so let me say, I want to see where it would be down 90%, because that's pretty important. So if it got down 90%, would be roughly 14 points. So yeah, anything under 20, I would definitely be digging the pickups. I don't see it going down much more than 90%, as from the tech bubble bust, a lot of those stocks that had massive run-ups and those high growth stocks, the dot-com bubble, a lot of those stocks pulled back roughly 80 to 90%. So if this thing pulled back in that 90% area, it would be about the 14 point. So I think the next time it breaks down this 30 point level later on this year, I think you definitely got to start potentially picking it up when it gets around the 20 point level. But realize, I don't think it's going to go down much more than that. I think it will start to lead out to the upside before the market bottoms, probably over the next 2 years. So this could be a really good pickup in the next bull market that we're gonna go into. Alrighty, take care, alpha hunters.